digital, you have all these kind of things, and your campaign manager is like, okay, I don't want to have to spend budgets on email, then budget on web, and budget on something else like advertising, affiliates, or whatever. I want to have a single budget that will then send a same message across all those channels. So you're starting to do multi-channel campaigning. But for this, you already need to have some integration. If you don't have the integration on the back end or somehow in the marketing cloud, then you're going to be very, very challenged to do that, or at least being able to target the right person. So in here, to move from this step to this step, the clients already start thinking, okay, I need to buy a solution. I need to either go one way with marketing channel, marketing clouds, or the other way, have a data integration warehouse, and then push the information. To go to the final step, which is real-time decision, real-time personalization, contextual personalization log. So you know the person is in your store, you send them a notification about something that is relevant for him because he bought something before, then that's even more integration. And I have to say, this part from a marketing perspective is very challenging. So Adobe, for example, has a very good marketing cloud, but the integration between Adobe Campaign, Adobe Analytics, audience, and all this kind of thing, still work in progress. If you start from the customer data part, because you have this integration of the data from day one, then you just need to build the channel to deliver. But you already know about the person at the right time, at the right moment. You need to be able to have this kind of that channel delivery. It's a little bit easier, kind of. But I will go through this.
Just one question. What's the difference between the data that you might collect in customer-driven approach and the customer moment? What would you collect in the customer driven that you won't have in the customer moment?
So in the customer moment, you will have real-time data. That's one thing that you won't always have in customer-driven. So the closer you are to real time, the closer you're able to engage at the right time. Here you will do batch processing, basically.
Okay.
Right? And most tools are doing that, especially when you have multiple tools for different channels. When you move to the other one, you're closer to sensor data. You're closer to information about the apps at the right. When you come into the store, you have sensor information. You really know a bit more about the customer from an intimate perspective, I would say. In terms of integration, you're more integrated. So in here, you might have several integrations between different channels, but not all the channels. In the last time, you already know, okay, I engaged with him with email, I engaged with him with website, he came in the store. You have a lot of information and more integrated with single customer view. That's maybe the difference. So I will go fast on this one, but so again, moving from the level of maturity from I start with single campaigns to I actually have engaged with the client at the right time, at the right moment. You have some kind of I would say that should answer your questions. You have some kind of metrics that will enable you to identify if you're in which degree of maturity your client is or you are. And of course, based on that, you have a higher response rate, and that's I think the takeaway is that if you increase your maturity towards engaging at the right time with the right person, of course, I mean we've seen a lot of research on studies on this. We get a higher return rate, and yeah. So now to the core of the discussion. What are the benefits? And I'm not going to compare them. I'm going to just say what is good. So I work with Adobe. I don't really work that much with Oracle and Salesforce. I've heard a lot from them, but I'm happy to get your feedback on it. So from my perspective, their main focus is that they focus on output and productivity. They help you to automate as much as you can the campaigns. Make sure that you have the ability to deliver, to actually send those campaigns out, have the content ready, make sure that the people can design and then send all these fantastic emails or engage with the customer in the right way. So they're really marketing focused. I feel like Adobe, for example, coming from this Photoshop thing is very design focused. They're often very B2C oriented, not always B2B. You have to do a lot of customization, for example, in Adobe Campaign, to have an email marketing tool that is for B2B, that doesn't come out of the box. So if I had to compare, I would say they're like a big factory, very nice factory, very advanced factory, but they are here to produce. Yeah? The difference with data hubs is that it's about a connection. It's about making sure you integrate different things together, and then you understand what's happening on those different channels, so that you can then give the priorities and based on those channels. So you can have, for example, I know what's happening on email, I know what's happening on web, I know what's happening in the store, and based on all this information, I decide to do this. So it's a different approach. It's more like a top-down approach rather than a bottom-up. Yeah? So it's integration, more real-time, as I was saying. There's a bit more real-time in here, because marketing clouds are more front-end. Sometimes the real-time is a bit challenging. You can get there, but it's challenging. And I would say if I have to choose between B2B and B2C, these ones actually have the flexibility, because you have the data in your own house, in your own hands. You can actually define how you want to target. You can choose, so you can have actually Teradata, a database or product, and then also have, let's say, Adobe Campaign for email delivery, works together, but you use Adobe Campaign as the way to deliver the right, nice email template, whatever. So they work. They're not really always competitors. They can be, but not always. So what's the idea behind all this is that both tools they're being used to deliver business outcomes. So and that's something that's kind of a step back. Is okay. So once we make a choice, we have to make sure that we don't just buy a solution to make things work like that. We have to really make sure that somehow we get the money worth out of it. And that's about connecting dots between channels in terms of connected data. So if you already have, for example, Adobe or Google, and you're thinking about moving up in the maturity model, you should think about, okay, if I buy the next product, am I going to be able to connect the dots? Am I actually going to be able to integrate a bit more and deliver better messaging to my customers? Yes or no? If you feel that you can't, then maybe you need to rethink your strategy. Same thing in terms of analytics. So if you have multiple tools from a marketing cloud or from a customer data hub, maybe you won't be able to create a reporting that will show you a marketing channel reports cross channels. You only have one report for web, one report for email, one report for the CRM, and that's something you want to avoid, because then people will be like, okay, but I need to put the CM will be like, okay, I have this much budget, who should I send it to? I actually don't know, because everybody's telling me they're doing a good job. So you need to have some kind of way to integrate these channels into one single report and be like, okay, man, this is actually the channel that is the most interesting from a reach perspective or from a conversion perspective, blah, blah, blah. And same thing in terms of interaction. So because you want to communicate to the right person at the right time, you also need to be able to identify whether your solution is actually going to enable you to do that. So that's an example from Teradata. I don't have to spend too much time on it. I don't want to sell the solution. But the idea is that, and Adobe does some kind of a nice way to approach to this too, is you want to build a reporting tool that enables the business to understand what's happening, not just data analysts. You want to tell them, okay, this is what how the product is performing, not from a page sheet perspective, because that they don't really care, but from a sales perspective, from a, I would say, audience perspective, they want to know this kind of information. So some tools are doing it well, some are doing a bit worse. Same thing from a journey perspective. So when we talk about customer journey, we don't talk about digital customer journey. If we stop here, we're missing the point, right? The customer, me and you, we go to the store, but we also go online. We check the app. We check social media and stuff like this, and that's our journey, right? If as a client or as an agency, I'm not able to actually help my client to understand these journeys, different journeys, then I'm missing the point, right? So my marketing cloud are quite nice. That sometimes they have a single product per channel, and they can integrate to some degree, so they can tell you this journey. The customer will enable you to do that because you bring data from these different channels and then you can do a query to have this kind of view. Have you seen this kind of solutions like that before? Yeah. So I don't know how much time I have, but my feeling was to move to actually some product examples and some numbers. So coming back to the customer journey as a whole, I see several points of contact, several kind of solutions that you can come in. So you can come in terms of being able to trigger the message at the right time, or being able to optimize like by taking different segments and merging them together, in terms of optimizing for inbound, for also, and defining next steps. So I'm going to take some examples. So for example, is about trigger. So here I'm comparing Marketing Clouds and Customer Journey on the trigger type. And my feeling working in Adobe is that Marketing Clouds are very good at defining segments based on which you can trigger a message. Yeah? The problem is that they don't always enable you to merge all those segments together and have a rule that is based on actually on different set of rules. So, and if you want to have something like, okay, I want to check, is it the first time the person abandons? How many products he bought before, which is CRM information, backend. Did he come in the store, yes or no? Maybe some other database. How many transactions he made? Maybe another database. Then this becomes challenging for a marketing hub. You have to build a lot of APIs to actually being able to do that, and sometimes it's tricky to get it real time. Well, if you do it on a customer journey, because you're in the customer data hub, then you have this single place where you can potentially have everything together depending on your implementation. So that you have a bit more capability in here. As an example, we did that with Teradata for a retail bank. So, and you would have similar challenge with Marketing Cloud, yeah? So this is just example from Teradata. So in this case, the bank had wanted to identify which customers was abandoning and then being able to come back to them, right? So very basic use case. You might see this being answered by Adobe too, yeah? So in this case, they had a tag-free system. So instead of tagging the different pages with Google Tag Management or Adobe DTM, then they were tracking every single click, every single exit with some kind of tag-free system. It's called Cerebrus. But you could get to the same level with Marketing Cloud. So this step, both tools can do it. Yeah. The next step here is that you have a 360 view. So how do you achieve that? You need integration. So in this case, the customer data hubs comes with one step ahead of Marketing Cloud because they already have this kind of warehouse place, right? But you could also achieve that if you enable the right APIs, if you make the dots being connected. It's maybe a big project, but possible. Yeah. And then at the end, you create a different set of rules. Here, it's going to be challenging for Marketing Clouds because you need to be able to say to this tool, stop, don't send anything because actually we are putting this journey as a priority and stuff like that. But the customer journey could potentially do it. Yeah. In this case, they were able to leverage $12 million, that's a lot of money, based on the first 12 months of this project. So that's the kind of information that you can then come back to the client and say, hey, we did that, and you want something similar. Another idea was in terms of optimization. So as I was saying, Marketing Clouds use segments a lot. So and they use that as the core to define the kind of audience you want to target. In the customer data hubs, they enable you to define those segments, yes, of course, but also define some priorities, as I was saying, in different set of campaigns that you have. So in MRCs, for example, or Adobe Campaign, you have the ability to have this nice flow of campaigns where you can say, okay, these segments, merge them together, send them this campaign. If they don't come back, send them a comeback campaign, or otherwise send them this other campaign, right? And you go through this flow. And maybe the same segments will have another campaign doing something else, right? The nice thing with customer journey, the customer data hub, is that you could potentially have all these campaigns merged with a priority schedule. So you could say, okay, this is the #1 campaign we are spending the most money on at the moment. This is where I want the people to be targeted first. If somehow they are not in this segment, okay, look at these. But if somehow they are in 2 or 3 segments that have several campaigns at the same time, please do the first one. And that marketing clouds are not always able to do it. At least I'm not aware of something in Adobe campaign. Then you could also like define some kind of best journey, best lead, depending on that. Another example here, so this time is with a patient. So in this case, their challenge was they had multiple spend across multiple channels. So that happens a lot, where you have a spend for email, a spend for digital, a spend for, let's say, advertising on the bus or on the taxi, stuff like that. And the CMO just doesn't know where to put the money. They ask reporting from the different business unit. Every business unit tell him, yeah, it's working well, give me the money. But it's very hard for a CMO to actually make the election of, okay, this is where I want to put my money, or because I feel this is where it has more potential. So, and this is a challenge that I think every vendor out there is trying to achieve. Yeah? So this is the way how customer labs answer it. They captured all the information from the different channels, put them into a single data warehouse, and then again give you this 360 view, so that you can then report on it back to the C-level executives, but also then target. The Marketing Cloud version of it will be a bit different. So Marketing Cloud versions, they won't be able to integrate it from day one. So they will have all those reporting on different solutions. So you have one reporting for digital, let's say Adobe Analytics, one reporting for our email, let's say Adobe Campaign, one reporting for mobile, on Adobe Mobile Analytics and stuff like this. Maybe you have some integrations, like you will know, for example, number of opens, email opens, you can send it to Analytics, and you can see that. But you won't have the full view. To have the full view, you might have to run an API, send it to something like Tableau or whatever, and then being able to build your 360 from a reporting perspective. But to be able to actually trigger it back, that's going to be something a bit challenging. So you're going to have to maybe build something on top to get information, report, and then trigger back. So it will be a big project. I've seen some customers doing this with Adobe Marketing Solutions, so it's possible. But it would be easier, I feel, if you already had your warehouse with all your data in it. In this case, again, a nice uplifting of 30% spent on savings during the sales with this. Another example here is with product recommendation. So that's something that a lot of retail are challenged with, is how do I make sure that the recommendations in my recommendation banner is actually relevant, right? How do I retarget my customer with the right products, right? So there's a lot of metadata challenge in here also, in terms of being sure that you don't retarget them only with the same products, but you also retarget them with products that are relevant. In this case, Marketing Cloud are often based on average of anonymous visitors, right? So they know that most visitors who went to this product actually also bought this product, so I'm going to recommend you this product, right? Customer data hubs can go a little bit further, because they have access to the backend information, right? So they can say, okay, so actually in all the transaction history, similar people bought this. So maybe that's more relevant to you. Or in the last couple of weeks, interesting. If you have the right metadata structure, and again to the data quality, then you could go way more. You could go one step more. You could say, okay, for example, I link washing machines with the washing machine powder, right, from metadata information. So then you can say, okay, if you buy a washing machine, you might also buy the powder, right? And that's something that you can only do if you have the metadata in your backend bit, right, or at least in analytics. An example here with retail. So they were trying to predict, to create recommendation, real-time personalization for the people coming on the website. In this case, they were capturing all the website data, so that you can do with both solutions, Marketing Cloud and customer data hubs. and then they will try to retarget. Again, you see this 360 view as the main core of the solution, because in the end, when you integrate all this data, you have the solution hands-on, and again, you have these business rules to be applied real time. So in this case, the customer data comes with one step ahead, but you could also achieve the same with Marketing Cloud. Yeah? And in this case, we were able to bring some nice incremental profits to the company. Last example is around next steps. So when you're working on the customer journey and optimizing the customer journey of your clients or customers, you might come up with a campaign that is your ideal campaign for a specific audience. But you also have to think about, okay, if they go through this ideal scenario, what are the next steps? Or if they drop in the middle of the scenario, what are the next steps that I want the customer to go in so that I optimize my revenue, right? So in Marketing Clouds, it's a bit manual. Sometimes, as I was saying, you would have a lot of campaigns that are scheduled in your email marketing tool, for example, or any other marketing tool. And you will have to think about, okay, I'm going to create another segment for all the people who drop, and I will target them with this segment. So you have some kind of manual process of creating all those campaigns, right? In the customer data hubs, you have the ability to score those different campaigns and try to think about already in the next steps. So you have a bit more capability to have a strategic approach than on Marketing Clouds. You can also pause and monitor what's happening a little bit better, because you have the capability to pose campaigns across multiple channels, which you may not have on all Marketing Clouds. So last example here, oh, that's a lot of, okay, was with customer retention optimization. In this case, it was with a video game company. So these guys, they had a lot of people using the different video games, and they wanted to know, okay, how can we engage with those gamers to make them have a better user experience of the video game. So they were gathering information on back of the game, having a lot of information on terms of channels and stuff like this. And the next question was, okay, how can we actually provide them with the right thing? In this case, we leverage some kind of event analytics, so that we had some kind of JSON file on top of the, I don't know if it was on the video game or on the web, but any other. And then based on this, we'll capture this, store on the data warehouse, and trigger the right things at the right time. This will be a bit challenging with a Marketing Cloud because of the fact that it was on the game. The Marketing Cloud won't go all the time inside a game. It would go inside the website, inside the email, different channels, but not always inside the game. So in this case, it will be quite challenging. This is all. So hopefully give you a bit of insights about the two different worlds. As I was saying, I'm not thinking one is better than the other. I've seen both. I've seen some clients being very successful with Marketing Clouds and Adobe in this case. Some clients being also very successful with Teradata. I've seen some clients leveraging both. So they had the Teradata database, they had AM for content and Adobe Campaign for email, and it works fine. It's just that you need Teradata or some kind of database to own the data, because that's your goal, right? That's what you need to have. You need to build this kind of 360 view. Then how you target the people, that's fine. You can do that with any tool. Any experience from your side? I was looking for discussions, if you have.
Quick question. So the appeal of Marketing Clouds is that they kind of handle collection for you, and they've got all the segments there, and you don't have to worry about stitching together customer data. How do you handle the collection side and interaction with delivery?
So, well, it will depend on the vendor you go with, yeah, definitely. But for example, to give you the example of Teradata, they have solutions that they build on top of they put on top of the database, which enables you to generate those segments. So you will gather all the events